Today, we will be diving into the country of Mexico, one of the many regions connected to the dispersal of African people. The colonization of Mexico occurred in 1519, causing a presence of Spaniard people throughout Latin America. This invasion resulted in the exploitation of Mexico's indigenous population. Land was stolen and taken control by the Spanish, and social aspects like religion and way of living were forced upon the native people. Spanish invaders at this time were also accompanied by enslaved African people. The first slaves arrived in Veracruz, Mexico. This was the beginning of the connection the African diaspora had with Mexico, and eventually the demand of African enslavement began to rise due to the indigenous population declining because of foreign diseases brought by Spanish invaders, as well as deathly labor enforced onto indigenous people. The population of native, Spanish, and African people led to interracial relationships, which of course resulted in creating a diverse population in Mexico that we can see today. Identity was a growing issue because of the multiple identities people were beginning to have, and the ties identity had with status. A standard was deemed onto society, placing Spanish invaders at the top. And when interracial population began to form, the standards did not lessen, but established the social hierarchies placed within Mexico. These social hierarchies were established through géneros de gente, or types of people, which were basically categories formed in early colonial Mexico made to group and label people based on their identity. Terms began to form, such as mulatto, which was used to refer to people of European and African descent, and were ultimately deemed as less than. These terms essentially formed a racial category with negative stereotypes that affected social, cultural, and physical characteristics of people, which carried on through centuries in history. Vicente Guerrero was of Mexican, indigenous, and African descent. He fought for abolishment of slavery, equal rights for Afro-Mexicanos, and fought for independence as commander-in-chief with the Mexican army in 1810. He was also Mexico's second president in 1829. Guerrero was a large contributor to the revolutionary state Mexico went through due to what was considered his radical views. Guerrero agreed to the Plan of Iguala, which confirmed New Spain and the unification of all, no matter their roots or descent. Through Guerrero's presidency, he was able to improve socioeconomic status for the working class, as well as granted rights for indigenous people. Guerrero was driven out of his presidency only after 7 months due to his views and decisions as president, and was found murdered in 1831. Although many efforts were made by Vicente Guerrero, as well as many Afro-Mexicanos against the Spaniards, like in the War of Independence, Afro-Mexicanos continuously were still overlooked and discriminated against throughout history, and even so until present day. Social, cultural, and economic issues within the Afro-Mexicano community are still so prevalent, and this community continues to be marginalized. The racism, marginalization, and colorism seen in the Americas today can be tied into the standards and hierarchies that were established by Spanish colonizers throughout history. It is long overdue to break ties with those standards and realize that the way we view people with darker skin is a result of just that. Afro-Mexicanos are living in high rates of poverty in isolated rural communities, mostly in Guerrero, Oaxaca, and Veracruz. They continue to lack resources, and it is a result of the way they have been viewed and discriminated against for centuries. In 2015, a survey in preparation for the census reported a population of 1.3 million Afro-Mexicanos. Afro-Mexicanos were officially acknowledged in the 2020 census, and it was reported that 2.5 million Afro-Mexicanos are a part of Mexico's population. Ignoring this group's identity just ties into the major issues being faced by this community, and the issue of colorism within Mexico needs to be addressed. Anti-Blackness has been an ongoing issue within the country of Mexico, and the seclusion is seen in media, educational textbooks, and overall society. and the blatant seclusion is seen based on how majority of Afro-Mexicanos live among one another in poverty and only in certain regions in Mexico. Although forgotten in history and overlooked in a countless of ways in society, the community of Afro-Mexicanos are here and are rightfully demanding to be heard, and are doing so by reconnecting to their African roots, some of which are through music and dance.
Del noroeste de África. Nosotros elegimos esa región porque nos dimos cuenta a través del internet que los esclavos que fueron extraídos de allá llegaron hasta acá, a nuestro pueblo, Coyantes, y entonces empezamos a indagar y retomamos esas danzas.
Afro-Mexicanos are fighting to be acknowledged through embracing their culture, making accurate history known, and demanding equity in today's society. Organizations like Minority Groups International is an online platform where people can search about all current issues being faced by minority groups around the world. Activists are using social media as a public forum to share information about Afro-Mexicanos through creativity and networking. History has set racial hierarchies that are nearly universal, so this brings up the question of, how can we as a society begin to let go of these hierarchies that are based solely off of hatred and racism?